Imagine that you lived a very long time, back before people had been to the moon, back before we even really had telescopes to see the moon very well. What would you think about the things that are above you? The sun, the stars that don't seem to follow a correct path. What would you think that they are? Well, this question has plagued most of mankind for the entire time we've been in existence until very, very recently. We didn't know what was above us or how it behaved or why it was there. And so we had to come up with legends and stories and explanations for what we were seeing in the sky. So that's what we're going to talk about for a little bit today. This is the fun part of the year where I get to put aside my science hat and put on more of a social science hat and look at cultures and how cultures looked at the sky. So we'll do kind of a magic school bus like tour of the world. We're going to start with the Egyptians. And again, like the other day with our lessons, this is going to be just a very light scratch of the surface. If you are interested in any of these cultures or in history of these cultures in general, please feel free to dig even deeper because the information out there is endless. I just know we can't have an entire class based on Egyptian culture and how they viewed the solar and the moon and the solar phenomenon. But anyway, very light surface scratch. Go deeper if any of this interests you. But the Egyptians had a series of myths and stories to explain the heavens, and they invented gods that were like a sun god and a moon god. And so the sun and the moon and even the stars and meteors, they all had a special place in their lives as far as telling them what to do or correcting their behavior or something like that. When they had events like eclipses or when we had the solstices or the equinoxes, those signaled particular points in their time of year. They built temples and pyramids, and a lot of these temples and pyramids, once they go and look into their construction, they will actually see that there is an astronomical orientation. Down here at the bottom, there's a pyramid, and there's two shafts that are built into the pyramid itself. You can see there, if you look through those shafts, they point directly. You can see this one on the left is to Orion's belt. And then the one on the right is to Thuban, which is a constellation, and we know it, I think, as the Little Dipper. I'm going to look it up, which one Thuban is. But it's a constellation that they have put, that they had seen in their sky, and it points directly to that. And so the idea is when their pharaoh, when their king died, they put him in the pyramid, and which is the tomb, and then their soul had this direct line up to the heavens. Also, if you look at the Great Pyramids in Giza, like the ones here on the right, if you look at it from an aerial photo, you see two larger pyramids that are directly in line, and then you see a smaller one that's kind of slightly off line. If you were to take a ruler or something and draw a line through that, it's a little bit offset. If you look at the Belt of Orion, which we know that constellation had significance for them, the Belt of Orion has two bright stars that are in line and then one slightly dimmer star that's a little offline. So it's very possible that their alignment of the pyramids was meant to mimic what they were seeing in the heavens. If we get our magic spaceship and we go around the Earth to the other side, in Latin America we had the Mayan culture. Now, the Maya also designed pyramids and temples that were aligned with the sun, the moon, and the stars. Some people like to say, oh, since they were completely on the other side of the world and they also built pyramids, that must explain the existence of aliens. Actually explains that in ancient engineering, a pyramid was the most solid, stable structure. So that's what that points to. But anyway, the sun, the moon, and the stars would be visible from either windows, or it would be aligned with that through certain points of the year. And so they could use the rhythmic pattern of the sun's movement to design a calendar. And then if any special astronomical events showed up, like we mentioned a eclipse a second ago, then that would be maybe a sign from the gods that a new king was to take over or that a battle should be fought. The Mayan calendar, you were probably pretty young, but back in 2012, the Mayan calendar ran out, and everyone thought that was going to, or not everyone, a select group of people thought that that would be the end of the world as we know it. In reality, it's the end of a cycle, and then they start a new cycle in their calendar. But yes, they had a whole calendar system, one of the most ancient calendar systems that we have, that they very well predicted rhythmic events because of their observations over a long period of time. And so they had really good ability to predict and follow solar cycles and create a calendar there. Zoom back over, we're going to go to Asia, to the Chinese. And the Chinese are very well known for great documentation. They kept really good notes, and they also studied what we now know as rocketry. Rocketry, of course, at first was more of a military occupation, but then there are some notes there that they were using it to try to get up to the sky and see what was up there. But we love their documentation. They documented a lot of things. They kind of kept, like the Mayans, a really good prediction of solar cycles. But they also watched the heavens and documented guest stars. Now, some of those guest stars, those shiny things in the sky that aren't normally there, we found by comparing them to the cycles that we know of, that they're comets. One of them we found out was a nebula. A nebula is an exploding star. And when scientists looked at the same area that the Chinese astronomers from way back when were explaining, they saw this picture in the bottom right. They saw the Crab Nebula. So they actually saw the bright light of the explosion. Now we're seeing the remnants of the material that's left over from this exploding star, which is now a nebula that you can't see with the naked eye. All right, back around, we're going to go to Europe now. So the Druids in Europe built what's one of the most mysterious things that I know of, which is Stonehenge, sometime between 3100 and 2000 BC, but instead of saying before Christ to make it more politically correct, they say before the Common Era. So that's what BCE is. And they constructed Stonehenge in England on what's known as the Salisbury Plain. You can go and visit it today if you want. For a long time, we had no idea what this thing was. No clue. But they started noticing some patterns. It's all about patterns. They noticed that what they call the heel stone, a small stone, and I'll show you a picture in a second, the alignment of that lined up with the summer solstice, which the solstice is when the sun is at the highest angle in the sky. Not that the sun moves, it's us that's moving around, but when the sun is shining on the highest angle on Earth, the sun would align with that heel stone on June 21st. So the idea is, oh, maybe this was like a gigantic calendar. It's keeping track of solar and lunar eclipse cycles, or keeping track of the year, harvesting, planting seasons, so on and so forth. So here's a picture of what they think Stonehenge looked like back when it was built. There's that heel stone at the top right of the picture. There is like an altar that they think in the middle. Everything is circled around it, so you can see where maybe those windows were markings of time. There were little smaller rocks around the outside that maybe when the sun lined up with them, that was a signal of marks in time. So they're still discovering things about Stonehenge, and it's another thing that if you have some time and you're bored, dig into Stonehenge, because it is bizarre. It's fun. But if you go to England and visit there, this is what it looks like today. You can still see a bunch of the stones standing. You can still see that inner circle and the outer circle, that heel stone over there that lines up. But yeah, it's fallen off. Of course, it's been 5,000 years, so of course it's not looking pristine condition, but you can still tell where things are supposed to be. Okay, and then we're going to go from Europe over to the Mediterranean, to the Greek. The Greek is probably where we are the most closest tied with our pop culture, with our understanding, with the names that we give things. We're probably closest tied to the original Greek ideas as any of the cultures. So the Greeks were known for mapping and naming constellations. If you may recognize some of these names: Orion, Aries, Andromeda, Virgo, Leo, Capricorn, Gemini. Any of those that you want to know your sign, those are all Greek constellations. So that's very interwoven into our pop culture now. Each of the characters had a story behind them. There was some kind of mythology or legend that went with that character. And even though that's very common for all civilizations, even Native Americans in North America had stories for constellations. For some reason, the Greek has really held on, and that's what's best known for us, is the story behind the Greek constellations. Here is a unofficial assignment. This is a picture of a star map, and the way a star map works is you align the circle with north, south, east, west, and then when you look above you, look for the pattern of the stars, and you see the constellations mapped out. Luckily for us, we live in the 21st century, and there are apps for that. There are a bunch of free ones, actually. There is, what's the one I have? Star Map, Stargazer, I should have pulled this up a second ago. Star Chart. So I have Star Chart. I don't know if you can see this right there. But whenever you open Star Chart, then it aligns your phone, your GPS, with your position, and it will tell you in real time what the stars are above you. So you can actually go outside and hold this up and turn it around, and it will show you what's behind you and what the names of those constellations are. So mine is just about ready. It's loading. I haven't used it in a little while, so it's loading. But here is Star Chart. You can go outside and look above you, and as you turn, mine's not turning right now because it's still loading, but as you turn, the pictures will also turn and show you, if you kind of move the phone out of the way, show you what you're looking at. It'll show you the constellations, it'll show you the planets. During the day, don't do this, but you could see where the sun's at, as if you couldn't tell to begin with, where the moon's at. And if you click on the features, then it will give you some additional information about each of those features. And this is free. I don't pay for apps because I'm stingy. But anyway, so go get a free app if you have room on your phone, and go play with that, and that's your assignment. So I will see you again tomorrow.